We're ready.
Okay, great. Hi, thank you for coming. I'm Peg Coleman. I'm the Executive Director of the Utah Domestic Violence Council. And we wanted to do this press release because of the video that we were shown yesterday from, it was one of our executive directors making comments in the northern Utah area, Tremonton area, that were shocking to us and received, and certainly my interpretation was that they were racist and very, very hurtful. And why that's so terribly important for us here is that the work that we do in domestic violence is the understanding of the cause of violence, is understanding the underpinnings of racism and other forms of oppression such as homophobia. So the remarks were just very rivetingly out of place coming from the person it came from, and I'm not here to speak about her. One of the other underpinnings of domestic violence is that in addition to victim safety and victim empowerment, that we really hold people to be accountable for their own behavior, and I trust the integrity of this person to do that at a later time. That's not what this is about. This is about Utah Domestic Violence Council and our responsibility to really step up and incorporate trainings on oppression, and the fact that these are just not theories. These aren't something that we fought in the 60s and is over with the civil rights movement a long time ago. These are, racism is alive and well, and it impacts people in a very, very real way, impacts the violence that is received in our community, and impacts the children that are being raised in our community. So my commitment here is that Utah Domestic Violence will be offering trainings on oppression, will be part of our, instead of, we do trainings on diversity, and to be honest with you, it's a quick gloss over, and I think it's to try to be as, as politically correct and as mass appealing as possible, and that's irresponsible at this point. The trainings that we will be doing will be addressing the real hard-hitting issues of racism, oppression, homophobia, and other forms of oppression, because they impact directly the victims that we serve. The other thing that we will be doing is very strategically looking for real ways to include people in the process. My impression here is, though there's a lot of wonderful people at the table talking, we don't always include the voices of the people most often harmed. And that oftentimes, out of political correctness, maybe out of wanting to be accepted politically, we sacrifice that voice. And in doing so, I think we harm victims. So the commitment here is that Utah Domestic Violence Council will be going back to its roots on the causes of domestic violence. We will be working very closely with the allies that helped form the domestic violence in the first place, and holding high the contributions of communities of color, in particular the Latino community here in Utah. We hope to work very, very closely with them to right this wrong, and I'm hoping that this is a step forward. This is my commitment as the executive director. Thank you.
How soon are you going to have those trainings? And I'm assuming it's directly in light of these comments, right?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm surprised that they're not already included. Historically, that's always been a core part of domestic violence training. I've been doing social justice advocacy for 35 years, and somehow we've stepped away from really the core competencies of what drives our movement. So I'm in touch with the Center for Inclusion, and we'll be meeting to discuss the best way to move forward on some actual trainings and working with things that, it's not about a simple training. It really is about systemic change and moving towards a social justice model that really incorporates these principles of inclusion, not just talks about them.
Can you say anything about the fact that when Annette, I know you don't want to talk about Annette specifically, but in the YouTube video when she called out Cache County Sheriff's Department and the Domestic Violence Council in Cache County as well, what was there any type of communication between, the group at all?
Certainly not with us. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter where her information comes from. As advocates, we have to meet a level of integrity that understands that what we say, our words really matter, and we can't take them back. We're in a leadership position, and no matter where our sources are from, we don't defer to anything that can be potentially harmful or create a barrier for people seeking safety. Domestic violence occurs in every class, in every culture, and we need to make our services as accessible as possible.
Are you afraid the Latino community will see this and not want to come forward or not want to seek help that they need?
I talked to people last night at length, and I was horrified as a middle-aged white woman. I was horrified. But when I'm hearing people talk about how do they bring their children into a shelter where people have articulated a consciousness of what they believe to be generational, inherent violence, and that's just wrong. That's racist. That's what racism is. I think we're very, very polite here, and I think we try to walk around issues. But my responsibility as an advocate, a domestic violence advocate, is to start naming social injustice, not just vaguely talk about it, but put a name to it. When we hear homophobic comments, we call it out. When we, and that doesn't make for comfortable conversation. So the reason is because we do have to serve everybody, and we have to keep our doors open for people, with whether we approve of their lifestyle, whether we like the clothes that they wear. They have a right to safety, and that's what we're grounded in.
And yes, absolutely.
So
yes, absolutely. The Latino community will be severely affected by this comment, because it breaks the trust that we've been trying to build as allies, as leaders. And I think that is the importance of the media today, to be here and to publicly attest that the Latino community not only brings bad things as it has been portrayed for many, many years, but there's a lot of strengths that the Latino community brings. There's a lot of resiliency, and there's a lot of hope. And I think it is important that the conversation starts turning from just blaming those individuals that we have not been able to work with,
right,
and start asking the questions. What happened to you, and what's still happening to you that you are still in this place where it seems like it's a lost battle, no matter how hard some of them try. And it is comments like this. Those are micro, overt aggressions towards the community at large. And we need to be aware of it, and we need to call the individuals, and we need the media to support this type of actions. We cannot stay quiet anymore. This is not okay. It's not okay to hurt communities such as the Latino community or any other community, and it is not okay for us to stay silent. So yes, the community is hurting. The community needs an apology, and I think that the community needs allies, institutionalized allies like Luz Robles and our legislators. We need UDVC to support this effort and to call individuals that this is not okay, and that the Latino communities and individuals such as me, we're human beings, and we feel and we work and we contribute to this society.
Being Latina, how did that make you feel? What was your reaction?
A lot of hurt, a lot of disappointment, because as a Latina, and I can attest that as a Latina, you have to work twice to try to gain a place. You have to constantly be aware of your accent, of your looks, whether you are expressing yourself correctly in order for your opinion to be heard. And so I think this touches everybody, not just domestic violence victims that are in rural areas, but it touches me, and I think it touches a larger community than just the Tremonton area.
And I'm sorry.
Can I get your name real quick?
Carla Arroyo, and I'm Executive Director of South Valley Sanctuary, a domestic violence shelter in West Jordan.
Arroyo?
Arroyo.
A-R-R-O-Y?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, and why I'm here as a state senator and as a member of this community, one is to first maybe send the message that we know that individual does not reflect the domestic violence community, that serve victims and survivors of domestic violence. We know that there's a lot of great people committed to keeping families and children and women and men safe, and in a place where they feel safe. We have great individuals that every day are in the trenches of keeping those communities safe, our community safe in the state of Utah, and that's very important. As we keep sending the message, we don't tolerate any type of abuse, and those comments were abusive in many ways. So it was important for the domestic violence community, and as a former domestic violence coordinator myself, I felt it was critical for all of us to stand behind the many, many good people that are working on this field. And it's a difficult field, and that's why I know everybody's hurting, because that's the last thing we need when we're trying to save, keep people safe. As a legislator, we understand, and we know people may agree to disagree. They may have different opinions. We hear many of them at the legislature. Many of them are hurtful. But I have to say, this was a little bit shocking to hear a very long speech with very inaccurate, blank statements about a community. And it doesn't matter what community it was. In this case, it happened to be the immigrant community or the Hispanic community, as they were, this individual was referring to that community. And it really is just very ignorant comments. They obviously are not accurate. I can care less who she was blaming. She got the data or information from. We know they're not true. So now we need to move to, forward. And the first thing we need to do is tell the Hispanic community if they're victims of crime, they can still access the many services in the state of Utah. They're going to be safe and they're going to get services. And the leadership of our domestic violence community, I know, are going to do the right thing. They're going to get together, make sure that they, assess whether there needs to be more training, whether we need to have more conversations. I think some of those things have been mentioned. But it's not okay to make those comments, and we should not just sit down and be like, oh, too bad it happened. We should just stand up and say we don't tolerate them anymore as a community. And I'm really just proud of everybody else that's saying it's not okay. And it becomes a bigger issue beyond that individual. It becomes an issue of whether as a community we can really start addressing them and making sure we don't tolerate them anymore. It's already hard enough for survivors to deal with everything else that they're dealing, and to have now, happen to walk to a place where an individual that feels that way, or I don't know where she got all that information from, makes those statements, that just is not helpful for the well-being of the family. So we're here to support the good people that are doing the work of domestic violence. I'm here to support them, and also to make sure we take necessary steps so this doesn't happen again. And I know there's a commitment from leadership in the shelter community, the different shelters, in the Domestic Violence Council, which I used to work in that agency, and I know these are individuals that are committed to keeping our community safe, and we're going to focus on that. But we can, this was uncalled for. It's very unpleasant. It's never been okay to make those comments, but in 2013, it's even more shocking to believe that people can still feel that they have an entitlement to speak about somebody else's children, about whether they have an opportunity to have a successful, American dream, seek that American dream. It was very, very, very sad. So we're here as a community to say enough, and we're not going to tolerate that, and we're going to move to the next thing, which is keeping our community safe. Working towards that, and we have great workers here. People that have great staff that every day are committed, that are 100% committed to keeping their community safe. So I just want to say thank you to them for being here too as well.
Thank you. Joe.
There's one. Sorry. Two. These are very expensive microphones.
I'm Jill Anderson, the Executive Director of the Domestic Violence Shelter in Cache County. And of course it was hurtful to hear a colleague fabricate a conversation that we had that did not happen. But even more concerning to me were the hurtful comments made about the Latino community. And we work so hard to ensure that our services are culturally responsive, that our staff members reflect